There is a silver bowl somewhere in your house that is not being used as a bowl. It is on a shelf with car keys and loose change in it. It is on a dresser holding safety pins and a spare button. Or it is at the back of a cupboard with a dried flower arrangement somebody put there in 1994 that nobody has touched since. Here is the part worth sitting with. A great many old bowls are plated, and an ordinary plated bowl is honestly worth $30 or $40. But bowls hide the widest range of any category because the shape tells you almost nothing. A plain round bowl can be a modern gift shop piece or 200 years old and hand-raised, and across a room they look the same. Tonight, 10 old silver bowls, 10 down to 1. Each with something you can check in your own hands tonight. And number 1 is almost certainly holding something in your house right now. One quick thing first, because it separates the good ones from the ordinary ones faster than anything else. There are 2 completely different ways a silver bowl gets made, and the difference is written on the inside. A raised bowl was hammered up from a flat disc of silver by hand, thousands of blows working the metal into shape. A spun bowl was pressed against a spinning form on a lathe. Fast, mechanical, modern. Raised work is older, and it is what collectors want. So look inside in raking light. On a hand-raised bowl, you will often see faint, irregular facets across the interior where the hammer worked, slightly uneven and never perfectly repeating. On a spun bowl, you may see fine concentric rings running around the inside, perfectly regular because the metal turned against a tool. Facets mean a hand. Rings mean a lathe. I will be honest that polishing can soften both, and some pieces show neither clearly. But when you can see it, it tells you a great deal in about 5 seconds. Number 10. The Paul Revere bowl. Start here, because these are everywhere, and almost none of them are what people hope. A plain round bowl with a slightly flared rim and a low foot, deceptively simple, is one of the most reproduced forms in American silver. Companies made them by the tens of thousands as trophies, retirement gifts, and wedding presents right through the 20th century. Here is what to inspect. Read the base properly and expect a 20th century maker's mark and often an engraved presentation inscription. That is what most of them are, and a modern sterling example is worth its silver and its design, not a fortune. But the form is worth knowing precisely because good early examples exist and look almost identical. Check the interior for hammer facets. Look at whether the foot was applied separately or spun as one piece, and treat an unmarked heavy one with curiosity rather than dismissing it. Number 9. The pierced basket. An oval or round bowl with its sides cut through in a lace-like pattern of holes and shapes, sometimes with a swing handle over the top. It reads as decorative, fragile, and slightly fussy. That piercing is the whole story. On early pieces, every one of those openings was cut individually with a saw and finished by hand. It took enormous labor. Far fewer were made than plain bowls, and the thin sections between the holes bend and tear. Run a fingertip slowly around the pierced sections, feeling for splits between the openings, for places where the metal has been pushed in, and for repairs where somebody has soldered a torn section back together. Then hold it against a window and look at the pattern. Damage in the piercing is expensive to put right and matters far more here than a dent would on a plain bowl. Number 8. The bowl with the blue glass liner. Small, often oval, pierced around the sides, with a deep blue glass liner that lifts out. Sometimes the glass is gone and there is just an empty pierced frame that looks broken. Nothing is broken. Those liners were there because salt and condiments corrode silver, so the glass took the punishment. Blue was the common color. Lift the liner out and look at it. Original liners are usually a slightly uneven deep cobalt with tiny bubbles and small imperfections, and they sit correctly in the frame without rattling or forcing. A replacement is often too bright, too even, and either loose or too tight. An empty frame is worth considerably less than a complete one, so if there is a spare blue glass in a drawer somewhere, it may belong to this. Number 7. The Monteith. A large bowl with a deeply notched or scalloped rim, so the edge runs up and down in waves all the way around. People assume the rim is damaged or that it is a strange punch bowl. The notches are the point. Wine glasses were hung by their feet in them with the bowls cooling in iced water below. On some, the notched rim is a separate collar that lifts off entirely, turning the piece into an ordinary punch bowl. Look at the rim before judging the piece. A Monteith rim is deliberately and evenly notched, finished smoothly all the way round, not torn or bent. Then try whether the notched section lifts off, and if it does, check that the marks on the collar agree with those on the bowl, because collars and bowls do get separated and married to the wrong partners. Number 6. The Art Nouveau bowl. Flowing organic forms, an irregular rim, a body modeled with leaves and stems or a wave-like sweep. To a modern eye, it can look misshapen, as if it had been dropped. It is not damaged. It was designed that way, and pieces from this period with genuine quality of modeling are strongly collected. Run a thumb over the modeled areas and along the rim. Original organic modeling is smooth and consistent, and the metal flows into the shape rather than being creased into it. Real damage looks different. A dent has a sharp fold, the surrounding surface is stretched, and the pattern does not continue through it. Telling an intentional curve from an accidental crease is worth doing before anybody prices this as scrap. Number 5. The heavily repousse bowl. Flowers, fruit, and scrollwork worked in deep relief across the whole body, sometimes so dense there is barely a plain surface left. Impressive, expensive-looking, and for exactly that reason imitated. The specific problem with bowls is rarely a fake bowl. It is a real but plain old bowl that somebody decorated later to make it more saleable, and that substantially reduces value. Here is the tell that catches it. Find the marks on the base, then look at how the decoration behaves around them. On an original piece, the decorator worked around the marks and left them clear. On a later decorated piece, the tooling crowds them, sometimes distorting the punches so their shoulders are pushed out of shape. Then look inside. If decoration was pushed out from behind long after the bowl was made, the interior often shows an uneven rippled surface, and the metal reads thin at the high points. Number 4. The Chinese and Japanese bowls. This is the one people most often misjudge. Asian workshops produced silver for Western buyers from the late 1700s into the 20th century, much of it very high quality, with dragons, bamboo, chrysanthemums, and figural scenes in deep relief. The confusing part is the marks. Many carry small letter punches that look at a glance like English hallmarks but are not, often sitting beside a character mark for the retailer or workshop. And Japanese pieces sometimes carry no Western-style mark at all, which leads people to assume they are not silver. On the underside, hunt for a character mark near any Western-looking letters and do not conclude that an unmarked heavy bowl with fine relief work is base metal simply because you cannot find a familiar stamp. That combination is the signal to stop and have the piece looked at properly rather than selling it as decorative brass. Number 3. The porringer. A shallow bowl, usually only 5 or 6 inches across, with one flat pierced handle sticking straight out from the rim. It ends up as an ashtray, a spoon rest, or a soap dish because nobody knows what else to do with it. It was an eating and serving bowl, and the American colonial examples are the ones that matter. The pierced flat handle is the identifying feature, and the earliest were made in small numbers. Study the handle rather than the bowl. On early pieces, the piercing in the handle is a distinct hand-cut pattern, and the handle is cast separately and soldered to the rim with a join you can usually see. Then look for a maker's mark, which on these is often struck on the handle itself rather than the base, which is exactly why people miss it. Number 2. The bowl that is not silver at all. Now the honest one, because this disappoints somebody every week. A great many handsome old bowls are pewter, Britannia metal, or nickel alloys sold as German silver or alpaca, and none of those contain meaningful silver. They tarnish differently, they feel different, and they are worth a fraction of what people hope. Read the whole mark, not the part you were hoping for. EPNS, A1, triple plate, and quadruple plate all describe plated pieces however heavy. German silver, nickel silver, and alpaca contain no silver. Pewter and Britannia metal are their own materials entirely. For the American and British pieces here, sterling, 925, and a full set of struck British marks are among the most important things to recognize, and a bowl with no mark at all deserves a proper look rather than an assumption in either direction. And number 1 is the bowl that stopped being a bowl. Number 1. The one holding your keys. Look on the hall table, the kitchen counter, the bedroom dresser, and the desk, because there is very probably a silver bowl on one of them with objects in it. Here is why it is number 1. A bowl with a job stops being silver in the owner's mind. Nobody appraises the thing the keys live in. These were among the most common wedding and anniversary gifts of the 20th century. Plenty were sterling, and because a bowl is genuinely useful, it stays in daily circulation long after the rest of the good silver is packed away. And daily use does damage a cabinet never would. Keys and coins scratch an interior badly, and a bowl used for salted nuts or fruit for decades can pit inside from the salt and acid. Your check tonight, and it is the whole video in one action. Go and find every metal bowl in the house that currently has something in it. Tip the contents out, turn it over and read the base. Then look inside in raking light for facets or rings, and for scratching and pitting. If it carries sterling or 925, or a set of struck marks with no plating grade attached, that bowl is not a place to keep your keys. 2 more things before you go, because they will save you money. Do not store salt, salted nuts, olives, eggs, or flowers in water in an old silver bowl. Salt and acid pit silver, and standing water leaves marks that do not polish out. A glass liner exists for exactly this reason. And do not have an old bowl machine polished before selling. Buffing rounds off the struck marks that identify the piece, and it can flatten the faint hammer facets that show it was raised by hand. Gentle hand cleaning is enough, so the habit is simple. Before selling, donating, polishing, or filling any old bowl, empty it, turn it over, and then look inside in a raking light. Because on a bowl, the shape tells you almost nothing, and everything worth knowing is on the base and the inside surface. Then, go and empty the one holding your keys. That is where number 1 is hiding. If this was useful, tap the like button so it reaches somebody else with a silver bowl full of loose change. Subscribe for more of the house, one shelf at a time. And leave a comment below. What is your bowl being used for right now, and who did it come from? A mother, a grandmother, a wedding you were not even alive for. The story of who owned it is half of what it is worth.